and a D came. G, down in the C chord. G, playing a D game. G, laughing and a seeing, hey, hey. G, skipping and a D'ing. G, in the misty C chord fog with G. A D, a thumping and C to D, my brown-eyed G to E minor. C, you're my D, brown-eyed G to D, verse 2, G, and whatever C chord to G and to D chord. G, going down the C chord with a G, transistor D chord. G, standing in the C chord laughing. G, hide behind a D chord's wall. G, slipping and a C'ing. G, all along the D chord fall with C to D, my brown-eyed G, do-do-do, E minor. C, you're my D, brown-eyed G, D. Do you remember when we used to G? Sha-la-la, C, sha-la-la, G, sha-la-la, D. G, sha-la-la, C, sha-la-la, G, sha-la-la, D, sha-la-la, G. Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we are checking out Van Morrison's evergreen hit, Brown Eyed Girl. This is a fantastic song for beginners. Only need 4 chords to get you all of the way through the whole thing. It'll be G, C, D and E minor. It's mostly the old faithful strumming pattern. There's just one little variation as a build into the chorus. So it's a really, really fantastic song. Anyone working on those chord changes and want to lock into the groove with your old faithful strumming pattern. If you're new to guitar, I definitely recommend you check out the JustinGuitar Lessons and Songs app. It contains hundreds of backing tracks specifically designed to help beginner guitar players develop great rhythm. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they're learning independently is they stop the strumming hand in between chord changes. Really, really bad habit and a hard one to kind of break once you got into it. Whereas when you're playing along with backing tracks, you never have that because the backing track won't stop. Of course, it contains all my beginner lessons, a tuner and a whole bunch more things as well, so do go and check it out if you haven't already. The basic chord versions that you're likely to encounter if you're doing my beginner course would be G, like this. This is just second finger on the thicker string and third finger on the thinner string. Fifth string is muted. If you've been playing G like that with the first finger down there and the second fret of the fifth string, that's okay too. I just feel like it muddies the chord a little, so I think it sounds better without it, but it's completely up to you. C chord, pretty standard. Just make sure that you remember to mute the thicker string. That's pretty important. D chord, again, pretty standard. Just avoid strumming the thickest 2 strings if you can. And E minor, I normally play it with fingers 2 and 3, but you could use fingers 1 and 2 or 3 and 4. It doesn't really matter. So that would be the standard way of playing these 4 chords. Now, one really common variation I think is worth exploring is using fingers 3 and 4 for the G chord. Now, the big advantage there, you can see moving to the C chord is really easy. So with this fingering, the whole kind of hand shape has to move. Whereas this one, you can see there's hardly any movement there to go from G to C. So using what I call the folk G, using fingers 3 and 4 is definitely an option to explore if you haven't tried it out already. It might feel a little harder to begin with, but because it makes the chord changes easier, it has some benefits too. Another really common variation is to use this 4-fingered G, or 3-fingered if you leave off your first finger again. But the key thing here is using fingers 3 and 4 on the thinnest 2 strings for that G chord. Now the big advantage here, you can go to a C add 9. So just moving second finger over to the 5th string, first finger goes down 2nd fret on the 4th string. Okay, that's a really easy change, G to C. And of course to the D chord, you've got the 3rd finger down as well, already as a kind of an anchor. So you can see the chord changes look real simple that way. E minor, of course, obviously you've got a bit of a change there, but those ones, yeah, it's a really nice, and it's a nice sound there, the C add 9. C add 9 is generally a swappable thing. If you see a C chord, you can play a C add 9. Sometimes it won't work, but if it sounds bad, then just stop doing it, right? Usually it's going to sound pretty good though. So you might choose to use the chords that are easiest for you, or you might choose to use chords that you want to work on. It is completely up to you. Now, the chord progression for this song, there's one progression that's used in the intro, most of the verses, and the chorus. Okay, so let's start off with that. That is G for 1 bar, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, back to G, 2, 3, 4, and then to D, 2, 3, 4. And I'd recommend getting used to this idea of just playing the chord on the beat first of all. Right, be able to play through the whole song, either along with the original recording or with a backing track. Just doing this strum on beat 1, making sure that you can do the chords consistently, and again, you're not stopping the rhythm. If you can keep your hand moving, your strumming hand moving with the beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and just strum on 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. Back to G, 2, 3, 4, and then to D, 2, 3, 4. Now the intro obviously is that little da 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 da, which I'll show you a little bit later on. It's probably a bit beyond beginner level, but I'll show it to you anyway, just because it's such an iconic little phrase. Let me take you through it then. So it's going 2, 3, 4. La ba da da da, C da 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 da, G da da ba da, D boo ba da, G da 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 da, C da 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 da, G da da ba da, D. Then we start the verse. So G. Hey, where did C go? 3, 4, G. Days when the D came. 3, 4, G. Down in the C chord. 3, 4, G. Playing a D game. And it keeps going. G. A laughing and a seeing. Hey, hey, G. Skipping and a D-ing. 3, 4, G. In the misty C chord fog with G. R, D chords thumping and U. Now, just there where it goes, and you, my brown-eyed girl, that's where the chords change. Otherwise, it's that G, C, G, D thing all of the way through. So this other chord progression that you need to memorize is going C, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, E minor, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4. So you just got to remember where it gets to just before the you're my brown-eyed girl, you're my brown-eyed girl line is where the chord progression changes. It goes C to D, G, E minor, C, D, G, D. So that's the one other bit that you got to memorize. The E minor only pops out that one time, and I always remember it's got that do 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 little melody that's played on the guitar. It's not sung, but that's a real good kind of cue in my musical memory that that's where the E minor is going to go. So let's just go from just before that. So G in the misty C chord fog with G, R, D chord thumping, and here it goes C, 2, 3, 4, D, my brown-eyed G, D, 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 E minor, 2, 3, 4, C, you're my D, brown-eyed girl, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4. So verse 2 is exactly the same as that, and verse 3. The only difference is right at the end where it goes to the D chord. After verse 2, it stays on D for another 2 bars and does a bit of a build-up. So when we start talking about the strumming pattern, instead of sticking with our down, down, up, down pattern, we'll go to even eighth notes. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, just to build us into the chorus. The chorus is exactly the same as the verse progression, the G, C, G, D. So that's the G, sha-la-la, C, sha-la-la, G, sha-la-la, D, just like that. So G, sha-la-la, C, sha-la-la, G chord, sha-la-la, D, 2, 3, 4. And then there's the little break where the guitar will stop, and usually there's a bit of a bass breakdown. If you're playing it on your own, you might want to go for some muted strums. So you just fold your fingers over the strings so you can kind of keep a bit of a groove on. That's really useful if you're playing with other people or there's other people singing along. They need to be able to stay in time. You can't just stop. Or you could just leave that bit out and keep going with the G, C, G, D chord progression. That would work as well. You just need to cue people, anyone that's singing along, when they're going to come back in. Let's talk now about adding in the rhythm pattern. The song uses the Old Faithful strumming pattern almost all of the way through, except for that little build into the chorus. Old Faithful is this down, down, up, up, down, 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 up, up, down. It's the most common strumming pattern that you find on guitar. So what I would recommend that you do is you work on the strumming pattern independently. So muting all of the strings and just making sure you're keeping your arm moving consistently. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. Really making sure there's no pauses. You're not doing funny stuff like going, which is a real common thing that happens. It's got to be just thinking of your hand moving consistently all the time. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. So work on that for a little bit first of all. Make sure you got it nice and comfortable, trying to stay as relaxed as you can. When you're like, yeah, I got that down, maybe add a chord. Just stay on the one chord. Make sure you're doing it. Keep your nice loose grip on the pick as well. When you feel like you got that down, maybe start trying to work on the chord progression, but keep it maybe a little slower to start off with. So going G to C, back to G, then to D. You really got to keep the rhythm consistent. This mistake, imagine if you're singing along with this with someone at a barbecue or a campfire or whatever, and they go sha-la-la, la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la. It just doesn't work. You can't stop the rhythm, right? That's why practicing with backing tracks or playing along with the original recording is so, so important. As I said, I'd suggest that you work on the chords, just single strums on beat one. Make sure that you got the chord progression well under your fingers and you can make those chord changes. Then add the rhythm, just working it a little bit slower and then gradually speed it up. Remember, the one change is where you go to the build up into the chorus, where you're going to move to continuous strumming. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up on the D chord. So you have a do you remember when we used to sing la la la? Okay, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That'll come after one bar of D on the Old Faithful pattern. Let me play you through verse 2 going into the chorus so you can see the combination of the chords and the strumming patterns applied. 2, 3, 4, G. Whatever C chord, G to Tuesday and D chord, G going down the C chord with a G, transistor D chord, G standing in the C chord laughing, G hide behind the D chord's wall, G slipping and a C and G all along the D chord fall with C to D, my brown-eyed G do E minor C. You're my D, brown-eyed girl. Do you remember when we used to G, sha-la-la C, sha-la-la G, sha-la-la D, just like that. So G, sha-la-la C, sha-la-la G, sha-la-la D, sha-la-da-da. If you want to sing and play at the same time, do work on the two things independently. So work on the guitar and get that down, and the vocals and get that down before you try and put them together. If you're struggling with singing and playing at the same time, I have got a lesson on that, a little 10-step program to help you learn to sing and play at the same time, because it can be a little bit tricky. Now, I'm going to show you how to play the little intro riff just because it is so iconic. It's probably a little bit beyond the beginner level, although it's not that tricky. It's a lot of fun, and it is one of those things where if you play it, everyone everyone knows what song you're doing right away. Doesn't get any more iconic than that. First finger, 7th fret on the thinner string. Second finger, 8th fret on the second string. You're going to play those together with the down pick. Then first finger goes up 1 fret, third finger goes down on the 10th fret. Play them together. Now that whole shape moves up 2 frets. You play it, you move it back, and then back to the first little dyad. You have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'm using all down picks, and here I'm using the outside part of my palm here just to touch the strings, just to get those mutes on. So I'd practice that bit first. Then the whole shape, exactly the same thing, moves up with the first finger in the 12th fret. So second finger would be in the 13th fret. Then first finger in the 13th fret, third finger in the 15th. Up 2 frets, back, then back to the first one. Now we've got first finger in the 7th fret of the 3rd string, little finger 10th fret on the 2nd string, and then it's you're using a little mini bar with the first finger to play 7th fret, 8th fret, and then 10th fret. First finger, second finger, little finger. To play the riff well is actually a little bit more tricky than it might first appear, especially if you happen to go up the dusty end on an acoustic guitar, but you might like to have a little go at it. If you're finding all of the rhythm elements pretty easy going so far, one thing that you might like to experiment with is using a D sus2 and a D sus4 when we get to the D chord. Just sounds real cool. You got the G chord to C. All this stays the same, back to G, but on the D, you can do this little, there's a standard D, little finger goes down the 3rd fret on the thinner string and lifts off. Then lift off second finger to get the open thinner string and back, and then to the G. So you get this nice G. See, you don't have to do it exactly the same way. You can experiment, but here you are. Or you might go to the D sus2 first and just leave off the sus4. That can sound pretty cool too. Here. Just gives you a little bit of harmonic movement just on that spot on the D. The other thing that I think is important to be aware of is dynamics. That is how loud and soft you play. Because the strumming pattern and the chords are kind of similar most of the way through the song, it can get a little bit repetitive to the listener. So one thing I'd recommend that you think about is playing the verses a little more quietly than you play the chorus. So just to turn the volume down, instead of playing at a 10, maybe play it at like a 6 or a 7. Then when you've got that build up there at the end of the verse 2 going into the chorus, you lift the volume up. It's like a cue for everyone to have a sing along, especially those that don't know the words that like to sing along with the sha-la-la-la-la part. Last thing I'd like to mention to you, I've got a very useful lesson for beginners called the 3 types of songs that I think every beginner should work on. It's a really great way of accelerating your progress as a beginner, making sure that you've got a beginner easy campfire song that you're working on, a grower, something where you're developing new skills, and an aspirational dreamer song, some song that you'd really like to play one day. Just that you keep on working on those 3 types of songs, really, really good for your development. There's a whole lesson on it over on the website. Don't forget there are hundreds of songs as well if you want to check it out, many of them specifically tailored for beginner guitar players, all carefully structured for where you're at on your guitar journey. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you for plenty more very soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.